Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little black subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that black subscribe button. Really does help our audience grow, really does help our channel grow, really does help and mean more than you could possibly know. So go ahead, hit that little black subscribe button. Also, thank you to our presenting sponsor, Betfred Sportsbook and the Betfred Sportsbook app. Bet 50 on any game, get $250 in free bets. Thank you again to Betfred. Thank you again to you. Now, here is the video that you came here for. Much content keeps falling in our laps here in now mid to late May. Just when you think the content well is drying up, something crazy happens. And that was certainly the case on Wednesday, involving a basketball player that we've talked about a lot on this show over the last couple months, and that is Caleb Love. By now, if you're listening to a show like this, you probably know Caleb Love's story, but played at North Carolina, 3-year starter for that program, and really, frankly, was part of some really iconic moments for North Carolina basketball. He was a guy that was part of a team that not only went to a Final Four, but beat Coach K in Coach K's final game as a college basketball coach. Caleb Love was basically the guy that hit the dagger to send Coach K into retirement. 28 points versus Duke, 30 points earlier in the tournament versus UCLA. And really, again, an incredible sophomore season that also didn't translate into this junior year. Did average just under 17 points per game, but 38% from the field, 29.9% shooting from three. And after the season, he decided to enter the portal. And I think we all were a little bit surprised, but we sort of got it. Something was clearly not right at Carolina. Caleb Love is going to look for other options. Well, a few weeks after he entered the portal, Caleb Love did publicly announce a commitment. It was to the University of Michigan. And at that point, I think we all thought the Caleb Love story was done, right? He's going to Michigan. We'll talk about him in the fall. We'll see if he has any success and what it means for Michigan going forward. Just one problem. Over the last couple weeks, we've started to hear some whispers in the streets that maybe Caleb Love was going to have some sort of issue, not going to go to Michigan. And then on Wednesday, we got the bombshell of all bombshells, as Joe Tipton, I believe, was the first one. The guy, Trilly Donovan, has been doing incredible work on this story. Want to make sure I credit the right people. But that Caleb Love will not be going to Michigan, with CBS's Matt Norlander, I believe, was the first one to report that it is over an administrative issue and some of his transfer credits coming into school. And so with it, Caleb Love is again on the free agent market. And what I want to do now is talk about where Caleb Love might end up. But just as importantly, what the heck is going on at Michigan? How do you let this happen? And what does a program that could deal with no negative news right now? It's a bad time for Michigan basketball. How do you let this situation get so bad? And what do you do from here? As far as Caleb Love is concerned, listen, he's not going back to North Carolina. I saw multiple reports reflect that. And obviously it's too late to enter the NBA draft. So he doesn't have to re-enter the portal because he already entered the portal. But now it becomes a question of where is he going to end up next? Now, my hunch, my personal opinion, I have not talked to anybody close to Caleb Love or anything like that. But the school that to me made the most sense when he entered the first time, and certainly makes the most sense now, is the Missouri Tigers. And for people who don't know the backstory, Caleb Love is from the state of Missouri. So there is a natural fit there. And I also think beyond that, Dennis Gates, to me, is the perfect coach for Caleb Love. Caleb Love, listen, there are incredibly high peaks and there are incredibly low valleys with Caleb Love. And the key to coaching Caleb Love, at least from a distance, how I perceive it, is you have to be able to find that happy medium. You have to let Caleb Love be Caleb Love, allow him to be the guy that averaged 17 points per game in the ACC this year, dropped 28 in a Final Four game, but also when he has those 2-3 bad possessions in a row, you kind of got to be the guy that is going to hold him accountable and say, you know what, come sit beside me for a few minutes, think about what you did, I'm putting you in timeout, and it's time for you to reconsider, and then we'll put you back in a minute or two. And so to me, Missouri always made the most sense because, one, being a St. Louis area kid born in St. Louis, my guess is there are probably some great NIL opportunities for him at Missouri. I also believe that he can maybe be the face of that Missouri program going to another level. Incredible first season under Dennis Gates. They go to the NCAA tournament. They win a tournament game. If Caleb Love has the kind of tournament he did at North Carolina, that's the kind of guy that can take a tournament team and turn them into a second weekend team playing who knows where. I know Missouri, they've made a few Elite Eights. I don't believe they've ever made a Final Four, but that's the kind of guy, if he has a hot 4, 5, 6 game stretch, all of a sudden you could be in the Sweet 16 playing to go to the Elite Eight. You can be in the Elite Eight playing to go to the Final Four. That is the kind of talent that he has. And so I don't know what he's going to do, but Missouri always made the most sense. And now even more maybe than when he entered the portal originally, it feels like it even makes more sense now than it did 6 weeks ago. Missouri has been kind of the bridesmaid, if you will, of this portal cycle. They've finished second or third on a lot of players they've wanted. Now they've gotten a few. John Tanji from Colorado State is a really good player, but also I know for a fact they wanted Matt Cleveland really bad from Florida State, ends up going to Miami. They wanted Caden Shedrick, was coming from Virginia, ended up at Texas. So Missouri has missed on a lot of guys. This feels like a guy they can get. This feels like a guy they kind of need at this point in the cycle. If it's not Missouri, I'll be blunt. There's a couple other schools that recruited him the first time around that makes sense. Memphis, probably, they're pretty good in the guard spot with Caleb Mills. So it would be a Caleb backcourt, Caleb Mills and Caleb Love. Indiana recruited him the first time around. It was kind of a hot and cold recruitment. At one point, you thought it was going to happen. At another point, it was clear that it wasn't. Don't know if they'd get back in the mix. So Caleb Love is going to have suitors because at the end of the day, listen, you can argue about the downside, but the upside is a guy that has performed at the highest level in college basketball's biggest moments. This is not a guy that you're taking from Grand Canyon or from the MAC or from the Big Sky, and you're hoping if you bring him to an Indiana, a Michigan, a Memphis, a Missouri, that he can play at that level or that he can compete or that he won't be afraid of the moment. That's a guy that can compete and won't be afraid of the moment. And that's why I'm intrigued to see what he could potentially do at another spot. I'll also say, though, really quick before we get out of here, as interesting as the Caleb Love perspective is on this, the Michigan perspective is also very interesting as well. Because you don't need me to tell you, it has not been a good, really 2.5 years since that magical 2021 season for Juwan Howard. If you remember that 2021 season, it was his second year. It was that COVID season, but he brought back a bunch of players that had played under John Beilein, added a few key pieces of his own, making Elite Eight. And since then, it's kind of been a disaster, right? Last year, you sneak into the NCAA tournament in 2022 as an 11 seed. Now, they didn't make the Sweet 16, but they were still an 11 seed. This year, you missed the NCAA tournament with probably 2 first-round picks, Jett Howard, your son, Kobe Bufkin, another guard who is probably going to be a first-round pick. You have Hunter Dickinson. Well, now Hunter Dickinson enters the transfer portal. He's complaining about your NIL setup. And really, it's just a really bad offseason. And the hope is that Caleb Love him or hate him, no pun intended, is kind of the guy that can fix the problems that you have at least for one season. Because while Caleb Love has his issues, the one thing Michigan needs or needed and now needs again is a guy that can fill up the basket and put the ball in the basket. And that's exactly what Caleb Love can do. And now he's not there. And now I don't really know what you do. And beyond that, I'll be blunt. I don't really know who you even blame in a situation like this. Now, it's interesting because to me, just checking the climate, it feels like everybody falls into one of two camps. It's either one, you blame Michigan admissions. They're a disaster. They're a train wreck. Remember last year, Michigan wanted to get in Terrence Shannon Jr., a top transfer from Texas Tech, who couldn't get in. There was issues of what was Texas Tech doing? Were they holding him back? But Michigan couldn't get him in. Now you have the Caleb Love situation. So some people are on the admissions is all to blame. Others are, it's Juwan Howard. And I'll tell you, I fall somewhere in the middle, but this does fall on the head coach, Juwan Howard, and let me explain why. And so after all this happened, I went ahead and I made a few phone calls and I talked to a few people just to try to get a feel for how does this process work. And what I can tell you is every school is a little bit different in terms of what admissions is cool with and what they're not. But usually somebody on the staff at least has an understanding of what's going on. So I'll give you an example. I talked to one staff this week after all this happened. They said, our admissions is cool on two fronts. If you're a graduate transfer, we can get you in. If you are a guy that just finished his freshman or sophomore year, we can get you in. Where the issue becomes, it's hard for us to get in a third or fourth year guy because our school wants a maximum number of credits. And ultimately they want you to be in school with us for 2-3 years so that you actually kind of quote unquote earn the degree. That was one school I talked to. Then I talked to another one that was like, undergrad transfers, no problem at all. Graduate transfers, that's where it becomes difficult because we have a very competitive graduate program and our graduate school isn't going to let in a basketball or a football or a tennis or a golf player, whatever, that's going to go to school for 6 months in a program that is 2 or 3 years. So I don't mean to belabor the point, but why I bring it up is because every school is a little bit different. Every school is a little bit different, but the one thing you need to do as a coaching staff is you need to have an understanding of what is going to fly with your admissions and what isn't. And so I would probably lean a little bit on Juwan Howard here because either you have to know that you can get him in when you take him, or two, you tell Caleb Love, listen, we want you. Do not put out a graphic. Do not make the public announcement until we know for sure you can get in. So regardless of who's to blame, it is just a disastrous situation for Michigan. And I'll be blunt, I don't know where they go from here. Now, I know they had another transfer on campus over the last couple of days, Ray J. Dennis, guard from Toledo. But man, that team needs talent, and they need talent in a hurry. Cannot believe that we are here. Disastrous for Michigan. And now we got a couple more days of Caleb Love content on this show because Caleb Love all of a sudden is available again.